In the sleepy town of Hawthorne, where fog rolled over cobbled streets and the air always felt heavy with untold secrets, stood an old mansion at the end of Oak Lane. It was the kind of house that no one dared speak of after dark. The Harper mansion had been abandoned for as long as anyone could remember. Its towering windows were shattered, its iron gate rusted, and the overgrown vines seemed to choke the life out of the once grand estate. The locals said it was cursed. No one who ever entered it came back unchanged. For years, the mansion was a place of whispered tales and rumors, of a tragic family who had vanished without a trace, leaving only their belongings behind. They said the Harper family had been cursed, their souls trapped within the house, unable to escape. The rumors spread like wildfire, and over time, the mansion became a legend. But for Sarah, a young teenager who had heard these stories all her life, the mansion was not something to fear, it was a mystery to be solved. Sarah had always been curious. Every day after school, she passed the mansion on her way home, gazing up at its broken windows. But that night, something felt different. The fog was thick, swirling in ghostly tendrils around her feet as she stood before the mansion's iron gate. Her heart raced. She knew it was dangerous to go inside, but the temptation was too great. What was it about this place that frightened everyone so much? With a breath that felt more like a sigh, Sarah pushed the gate open, the rusty hinges groaning in protest. The moment she stepped onto the overgrown path leading to the front door, a chill swept over her. The air felt heavier, colder, as if the house itself was watching her. A strange, eerie hum filled the air, low and indistinct. She froze. A voice, a whisper, seemed to call her name from the darkness within the house. Sarah. Her pulse quickened, but she didn't turn back. She had to know what was inside. The door creaked open of its own accord, as if inviting her in. She stepped inside, and the world outside disappeared. It was dark, save for the faint glow of moonlight filtering through the cracked windows. The wooden floors were warped, and the walls were covered in layers of dust and decay. As she moved deeper into the house, her footsteps echoed in the silence. The deeper she went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. The air was thick with dust, but there was something else too, something almost tangible. A presence. The house felt alive, as if it were breathing. She reached the staircase and hesitated. Her mind screamed at her to leave, but her curiosity was stronger. She climbed the stairs, her heart pounding in her chest, until she reached the attic door. The door groaned as it opened, and inside, she saw an old mirror leaning against the wall. It looked out of place, covered in layers of dust and grime, but there was something about it. A pull. She couldn't explain why, but she had to look. Slowly, she approached the mirror, her reflection growing clearer the closer she got. But something was wrong. She stopped in her tracks. Her reflection smiled. It wasn't the nervous, uncertain smile she wore, but something darker. The reflection's eyes glimmered with malice, and the smile grew wider, more sinister. Sarah stumbled back, heart racing. She turned to flee, but before she could, the door slammed shut behind her. The house seemed to hold its breath as the walls creaked and groaned. The whispers began again, louder this time, echoing around her. "Leave, before it's too late." Sarah's breath hitched. She spun around, looking for the source, but the room was empty. The shadows seemed to shift, growing longer and darker with each passing second. The whispers were now joined by distant, hollow voices, the Harper family. They were crying out, pleading for help, their voices muffled by the very walls of the house. Suddenly, the mirror flickered. For a moment, the reflection showed her, but then it warped. The image of the Harper family appeared, smiling happily in front of the house, before the scene darkened. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she watched in horror. One by one, the family members were dragged into the depths of the mirror, their faces contorting with terror, their screams muffled. The house seemed to shake. The very floor beneath her feet trembled as the whispers grew louder, now echoing through every corner. "You should not have come," they said, and Sarah felt a chill crawl up her spine. She backed toward the door, but it wouldn't budge. It was as though the house itself had sealed her in. Frantic, she grabbed a nearby piece of broken furniture and smashed the mirror. It shattered with a deafening crash. For a moment, the house was still. The oppressive weight lifted. The whispers stopped. But as Sarah stumbled out of the house, she felt different. The moment she crossed the threshold, the cold air outside seemed warmer, the fog lighter, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed her. She returned home, trembling, only to notice the shadows in her own house. How they seemed to watch her, to move just a little too quickly. Later that night, as Sarah sat in front of her mirror, she saw it again. Her reflection smiled at her, not her smile. It was wider now, more sinister, and the reflection whispered, "You are part of us now." The next morning, the house on Oak Lane was still empty, and the rumors about it spread like wildfire. But no one knew the truth, that the curse of the Harper family had not ended. It had found a new victim, one whose face would never truly be her own again. The whispers followed Sarah, growing louder with each passing day, until they became a constant hum in her mind. The shadows were always there, just behind her, waiting for the day when the house would call her back. And when that day came, she would never leave again.